Yep.
All right.
All righty. Good evening, everybody. I apologize. I don't know what is wrong with my camera. I have taken this computer and slid all types of buttons and sliders and everything else to figure out why it does not want to see my face tonight. But I am here. And I want to welcome everyone to our Welcome to Evolution of Labor, from Emancipation to Entrepreneurship. My name is Dr. Tawana Smith. I am a soror of Iota Phi Lambda Epsilon Tau chapter, and affectionately known as Dr. T. I am the co-committee chair alongside soror Tiffany Lindley, where we are proud members of Iota Phi Lambda Epsilon Tau chapter, and our president is Madam Yan Herbert. Unfortunately, she will not be able to join us tonight, but she does send her love. I would like to take a moment right now just to thank our guests for your time, and each of our participants for joining us tonight to gain some invaluable insight on the evolution of labor. So without further ado, I will turn this over to tonight's moderator and my co-chair, soror Tiffany Lindley.
Right. Thank you so much, Tawana. Can you get the PowerPoint up to our speakers, and I will read off.
Yeah, let me know what you see because I can't see.
Okay, so right now it's giving me the screen. Oh, there we go. Now we're at the intro screen, and I guess go maybe 2 slides over. So that's our welcome.
I just want to see if I could be of help. Have you checked your camera to make sure the cover lens is off?
Yes, I've slid that button backwards and forwards. I thought that was it. I rebooted, restarted. I don't know. It's on its own mind. I'm probably gonna have to take it to the shop to see if they can. I'm thinking maybe something fell behind something, so it may be a little more work that needs to be done on it.
I'm so sorry.
Well, I appreciate you being my PowerPoint person. Okay, so good evening, welcome. I'm Tiffany Lindley. Professionally, I'm the founder and CEO of On Epiphany Lane, which is a mental health consulting agency, and the clinical director of Epiphany Lane Counseling, which is a counseling practice here in Dallas, Texas. And I serve all over Texas. But I'm also a proud member of the Epsilon Tau chapter of Iota Phi Lambda Sorority Incorporated, and I will be your moderator tonight. It's truly an honor to have you all here. We are eager to spend this evening with you, and we are excited to learn about history and get some wisdom from these illustrious panelists. So the theme for Black History Month 2025 is generally African Americans in labor. And this theme highlights the many ways that work has impacted the lives of Black people throughout history. From the forced agricultural labor of enslaved Africans to the debates among Black educators on the importance of vocational training versus college education, Black people's work has been transformative in the United States, Africa, and the entire diaspora. The 2025 Black History Month theme celebrates the powerful impact of this work, and this panel tonight will explore this from several perspectives. Now, let's meet our amazing panelists. So we're going to start first with Ms. Regina L. Burns. She's a Dallas-based historian and award-winning journalist, specializing in 20th century Texas African-American business history, and particularly the Tyler Barber College chain founded by millionaire H.M. Morgan. Her journalism career includes work with Black Enterprise, Texas Highways, the Dallas Morning News, WFFA-TV, and others. And as a former news director at the Memphis WGKX KIX 106 FM, she broke the story of Dr. W.W. Harrington's historic mayoral campaign, leading to Memphis's first African-American mayor in 1991. Burns holds a Master's of Arts of History from UNT in 2024, and a Master of Journalism from the University of Memphis, as well as a Bachelor of Arts in Broadcast Journalism from Abilene Christian University. Her 2020 Texas Highways article on Barber Edmund Morrow led her to pursue graduate study in history, and Mrs. Burns's 2024 master's thesis will be published by UNC in 2025. She remains dedicated to preserving African-American business history, and we are so excited to welcome Regina Burns. If you guys can click your little claps for our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. All right. One of my favorite people, Mr. Charles O'Neill. He is a passionate advocate for Black business and a recognized leader in the economic empowerment of African Americans. He serves as the chair of the board of directors of the U.S. Black Chambers Incorporated, which represents 175 chambers in 42 states, and is also the president of the Texas Association of African American Chambers of Commerce. Under his leadership, Texas has led the nation in the rate of business formation among Black women for nearly 2 decades. With years of entrepreneurial experience as the owner of a Black media entity, O'Neill has gained a reputation for his deep commitment to supporting Black-owned businesses. His dedication stems from his firsthand experience in the newspaper industry, where he conducted a survey revealing how systemic barriers prevent money from circulating in Black communities. O'Neill believes that business ownership is key to reversing this trend and creating lasting economic change. Let's welcome Mr. Charles O'Neill. All right. Our next panelist is David, the sales doctor, Tyson. He's a seasoned sales coach, trainer, and consultant with over 45 years of experience in sales and sales leadership. As the founder of Sales Track Coaching and Management Development Incorporated, he's dedicated to helping sales leaders, HR professionals, educators, and nonprofit organizations improve revenue, retention, and performance. A DFW Minority Supplier Development Council member, his expertise includes sales department and HR personnel assessment and development, millennial communication skills, and public speaking. With an extensive background in pathology, sales, and marketing, where he held executive and regional management roles, Tyson provides strategic and tactical guidance to companies selling to the medical and hospital market. His mission is to empower individuals, teams, and organizations to achieve their goals and reach their full potential. Let us welcome the sales doctor, David Tyson. All right, and last but not least, Ms. Tammy Gamble is a dynamic and innovative force in the construction education space, known for her unique approach to teaching and advocating for women in trades. As a nationally certified building trades instructor and advocate for disruptive thinking in construction education, Tammy has made a significant impact through her workshops for women and children, inspiring them to build using STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Tammy is also featured on Disney Plus in Shop Class and in Duluth's campaign for Well Women Who Do Real Work. She has recently published a children's book, Love Letters to My Toolbox, and is a carpenter first and an educator second. She's passionate about putting tools into the hands of those who need them. Tammy's mission is to challenge stereotypes and create opportunities for underrepresented groups, especially women, to thrive in construction and skilled trades. Let's welcome the girly shop teacher, Tammy Gamble. Yay. Doesn't this panel sound amazing? I'm so excited. All right, so we're going to jump right into the questions. Perfectly on time. Ugh. Just makes my heart smile. Okay, so we're going to start with the historical legacy of African-American labor. This is more of a general question for any of the panelists. So, how would you say struggles and achievements of African-Americans in labor have shaped the workforce and the business landscape of America? Just kind of give me your first thoughts about the legacy of African-American labor.
Well, I want to jump in and get in on this gravy train because it's so exciting. And I speak from the standpoint of an emerging historian, someone who's also a journalist, but my area is Tyler Barber College, the nation's first African-American barber college chain, which I'll get into as we progress through the night. And so to answer your question, speaking about barbers, right? And so we know going back through history all the way to Bible days that Africans were part of the barbering industry. And so that industry continues today. As we know, barbers are being successful in so many different ways and have reinvented themselves over time. They went through legal challenges in the early 20th century in terms of being able to actually get the training and the necessary licensing that they needed because of Jim Crow segregation, etc. And so one of the key things that I'm really excited about is telling the story of the nation's first African-American barber college chain founded in East Texas during Jim Crow segregation, Tyler Barber College. Looking at that history and how it trained 80% of the nation's African-American barbers during Jim Crow segregation in Texas and Tennessee and several other states across the nation. And there are people who are benefited from that training today and don't even know about the legacy of Tyler Barber College. And I hope not only will my thesis be published by UNT at some point this year, but to eventually write a book and tell you about two of the barbers that I've interviewed for my oral history studies.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, like having those clear examples, I know really helps paint the picture of not, even though there's struggle, there's still so much achievement in Black America. Anyone else have any thoughts about just how Black labor has shaped our workforce? And, please take current political climate into account when you answer that question.
I'd like to jump in.
I'll jump in.
Okay,
if
go
you're
ahead.
okay with that.
Yeah, David. Oh,
All right. I'm going to take it from a different perspective.
okay.
Perhaps I'm going to go back, and I want to base this somewhat on my family heritage, my family history. Today is the 26th, and it's my dad's heavenly birthday. He would be 98 today, but he lived to the ripe old age of 91. We grew up in North Louisiana, and historically going back during to the times that our families were enslaved and coming out of enslavement, my family was always in the farming business, and they were not sharecroppers. They actually were some of the folks that actually owned their property. They owned their mule. Okay. And so they were able to produce they were able to produce two types of crops. One was cotton and the other was sugar cane. On my maternal grandfather's side of the family, they were considered rich people in that particular day, because they were able to produce their sugar cane, take it to market, and actually make money off of it. My grandparents bought a home in Shreveport, Louisiana, and pretty much paid cash for it. Now, part of the reason that they had to pay cash for it is because they couldn't get a loan anyway.
That wasn't a thing. You're exactly right.
Right. So they had to save their money. But even going back to the times when I was but a child, and my dad, was helping my grandparents specifically go out and dig up sweet potatoes, yams, and we would take those not to market, but we would bring those in my dad's pickup truck. We would bring those into the city and sell those by the bushels. Yeah. All right, you may be familiar with the Watermelon Man or people like that. But Black folks have always been able to figure out how to make a living independently from the corporate America that just really didn't exist for them. So when I talk about it, I talk about it from my own personal family heritage, going back, 4 generations.
Oh, that's a wonderful anecdote. I love that. Well, I thought about the watermelon as a concept and how it's had this, stereotype around it, but it was because Black people were being industrious. They were being, using what was in front of them, which was a very easy crop to grow and, was very lucrative. But I think being able to reclaim that is a good thing about having these conversations, and that we can, we were doing these things before it was even quote unquote allowed. Thank you so much for that, David. All right. Well, I can move on to another question about history.
Can I jump into that?
Oh, Tammy, that's right. You had something to say.
Okay, so
what do you have about the history of?
So jumping into the history, what a lot of people don't realize is, of course, within the Black community, necessity is the mother of invention. Our colleges, university, trade schools evolved out of what we already knew, from being apothecaries to being midwives to being people who were agricultural workers, rail workers, military service. That all evolved because that's what we were already doing. My great-grandfather, Henry Floyd Gamble, was the first African-American to graduate Yale Medical School. And I'm a part of his proud legacy, but also my grandmother, Jimmy Tyler Brashear, was the first African-American female with a school named after her in the Dallas public school system. And I'm sitting in her house right now because I am that much of her legacy. Yeah, so we are influenced, and this will come later on, by what we see and what we know, and things that we're bribed into. Like, if you don't go to school and get a minor in education, I won't send you care packages. That's why I'm an educator, because necessity is the mother of
That's
invention.
what I told you to,
Yeah,
exactly.
I got told what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So when we shift this pendulum, and we jump back 120, 150 years to 2 or 3 generations ago, we are influenced by what our ancestors did
Mhm.
and the proud legacies that they leave behind.
Yeah, I like the way that you're framing that. And it's like, we were already doing it. I think that is the part
Yeah.
about like culture, why it's so important to like really embrace culture, and why we need to protect culture in a way, right? With like appropriation and things like that. Because yeah, it's very easy to just say, oh, y'all just do that because blah, 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 versus like, no, I have like 100 years of history being a farmer, you know, 80 years. My grandfather, learned how to be a barber back then. Like, being able to say that is really, really valuable, as Americans, not just as Black Americans.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you so much for that. I was like, we're sure they're gonna down the street. I know exactly where your grandmother's the school is. That's amazing. Really living legacy. Okay, so Regina, you ready to talk about our things from the media perspective for us? Because you're
Yes,
a dual career type of gal, and I want to
absolutely.
look at the role of media in labor advocacy specifically. So my first question is, how has journalism shaped public awareness of Black labor history, or just Black labor in general? And what are some of those unrepresented stories that deserve more attention?
Well, I want to take us back to the founding of the Chicago Defender. And so 1905 is when Robert Abbott founded the Chicago Defender. And we're talking about a historically rich publication that today researchers and scholars can access online. We're talking about the historical version. And so it's available in academic databases for scholars all over the world to use. I used that particular database and found a wealth of stories and articles as I worked on my master's thesis. And I'm holding up just my appendix so that you can see. And so African Americans have always been able to communicate our stories in some shape, form, or fashion of media. Now, of course, it wasn't always formal media. We used songs, of course. We used various rhythms, in the barbershop or in the beauty shop. Of course, we used passing on messages or things like that to communicate however we had to. And so we know that media evolved over time, but we had our own media. We had our own way of communicating and making sure that key messages got to who they needed to get to. But more formally, I want to begin with the Chicago Defender. Of course, there were quite a few, many, many other papers prior to that. I'm certainly aware of that. But that's the paper that my professors at UNT, as well as the amazing Dr. W. Marvin Delaney, who is my scholarship benefactor when I first started this journey. And of course, I graduated in December from UNT. But when I began this journey in 2021, he said, I want you to go to UT Arlington, and I'll make a scholarship only if you go to UT Arlington. So I want to be sure to get that, give him the credit. But he's the one also that advocated in terms of my research, look at the Chicago Defender. So the Chicago Defender was covering our communities nationally. And so while it's in Chicago, it has ways of gathering stories across the nation about what African Americans were doing. So you're talking about labor, you're talking about our church movements, for example, our women's societies. Labor covers more than just work. The labor of the church, the labor of the nonprofit, the labor of the community, the labor of, education, clearly. So there are different types of labors that history and historians have used over time. And then as I move forward through time, like I said, you can find databases that have these rich stories about our achievements, about our successes, and then bringing us forward. Of course, we know many other publications would include, of course, Black Enterprise. And so we would look to John Johnson out of Chicago, Jet Magazine. These publications obviously heralded our success, our achievements, the wealthy entrepreneurs, the philanthropists in our communities were highlighted in these publications. And in case anyone doesn't know, you can access these publications online because Google Books provides access to Black Enterprise. Google Books provides access to Jet Magazine. I was able to find, through the help of one of my professors, Dr. Chad Pearson at UNT, he's the one that led me to Google Books, which led me to find the obituary of the founder of Tyler Barber College. His name, of course, was Henry Miller Morgan. And so when Mr. Morgan passed in Texas in 1961, in Houston, actually, his obituary was in Jet magazine stating that he was a millionaire.
Yeah.
And so those are just a few media outlets that I wanted to elevate and share. This is a photograph of the founder of Tyler Barber College chain, H.M. Morgan. Hope that you can see that. And so he was, his obituary was in Jet. So those are just couple of the media outlets that have heralded various forms of our contributions, our labor, our successes. And certainly in terms of the second part of the question, what other stories deserve more attention? I have to talk about barbering because that's the area that I want to speak to. And how did I come to this? I'm a Tennessean by birth. As a friend of mine says, I got to Texas as quick as I could. I did my undergrad in Abilene and then back to Tennessee working in media. But I was challenged to write an article for Texas Highways Magazine, and I'm holding that up so that you can see, in December of 2020 during the pandemic. And it was about a barber in Turl who was Jamie Foxx's former barber. And so Mr. Edmund Morrow, and again, I'm holding this up, and you can access this on harvestreapers.com, which is my website. And so Mr. Morrow, I found him, and through my editor, Matt Joyce, wrote the story about his journey. And he mentions Tyler Barber College, that he and his late father had gone to Tyler Barber College. I didn't know what Tyler Barber College was. I'd never heard of it. Long story short, after researching it, the story came out in December of 2020. And that led me to pursue graduate study because I was challenged by one of my former professors at ACU. And so that opened the door to learning that it expanded in Texas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas. And you can use the last resource I'll give you is something called Chronicling America, which allows you to look at African-American newspapers. And so, for example, the Jackson Advocate out of Jackson, Mississippi, the Arkansas newspaper, etc. You can find these Black publications on Chronicling America. And because Tyler Barber College had barber shops and beauty schools, not barber shops, barber schools, let me clarify, and beauty schools eventually in these other states. And so I'm still looking at newspapers to see, and looking at the ads and how Morgan was advertising, for example, to Black veterans, saying, you can come to Tyler Barber College and get training. You can have a good career. You can have a profitable life. And so to get to your question, I think the story of barbering, but particularly Tyler Barber College, is really significant and important. And I hope to be the person that can continue to share this information.
Thank you so much for that. And I think, like you're saying, barbering itself doesn't get the same kind of shine as maybe like we have Madam CJ. We have these figures already in beauty and like Black women's beauty, but we don't really have that same kind of figurehead. And I think Mr. Morgan would probably be a great person to kind of be that counterpart so that, you know, all of our beauty is covered when it comes to Black labor and how our upkeep and our self-love by taking care of each other, you know, is something that helps our culture have some cohesiveness. And I guess one more question about media before we move on to women in the workforce. As far as inequities in the labor market, what can journalists and storytellers do to further advance workplace equity and talk about exposing the inequities? And like I was mentioning earlier, because of the way things are are developing with this new administration, I feel like this has a lot more importance than maybe it has had in the past.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, you have to have a journalist who is interested in covering the story. And I think the other side, though, it works both ways because often it requires a group or an organization to raise the issue.
Yeah.
And so it's a two-sided coin. Journalists can't find every story or everything that needs to be covered. And that's where picking up the phone, sending an email, calling, whatever, that newsroom, that news director, audio, video, however, even if you go and cover it and say, listen, we think this is important. We're seeing a trend. Here's our data. Here's statistics. Or we had a study done and our study found this, et cetera, et cetera. There is an equity in this particular area, and here are the impacts. And this is why this matters, because we see over time these things are occurring. And so this is one of the great things that I feel excited about as a journalist and as a historian, is to try to get more of our voices to raise our voice, and for us not to sit back to wait on someone to recognize there's a need for media coverage, but for us to be more active and proactive, picking up the phone. Again, I worked at Channel 8. I worked in Memphis radio, television, newspaper. I worked for the Associated Press. And I'm going to tell you, this is a strategy that works. Pick up the phone. It's old school.
Old school words.
But someone is paid to answer the phone in every newsroom in America.
Yeah.
And they are waiting on a story. They are waiting on something that will make the news, that will get attention, that will get more eyeballs on their websites, on their blogs, on their newscasts, or whatever. And so if you have something that you think is relevant, that deserves more immediate attention, that, hey, ABC News should be covering this, or whomever, Black Enterprise, whomever it is, should be covering this, pick up the phone, let them know about that story. There are people in the newsroom right now waiting on a story. They're waiting on somebody to call them with a news tip.
All right, because I mean, right now it seems like social media has replaced that. And yes, it has a great role in amplifying stories, but you can't wait for it to go viral sometimes. And sometimes you want to leave it to the professionals, right? Like you don't want to have to be the person covering it and taking on a lot of that risk, because I know that's what makes people afraid, right? Is that there is a risk in me putting my face out there and talking about how, Starbucks treats me, because that's been a big trend I've seen on social media too, right? Is people exposing their jobs when they've left, or inequities and things like that. But journalism and professional journalism has a place. And like you said, sometimes the old way works because you're getting that human connection that really gets things moving. So
And
thank
it
you.
really, and I'll just say this, the last thing is, it really depends on what the organization's goals are. At the end of the day, what is it that you want to accomplish? If you're trying to raise the volume on a particular topic or interest, who is your demographic? Who is your target audience? Who is it? Because not everything, as you just well stated, not everything works for every audience or every demographic. And so maybe social media might be more appropriate for whatever you're trying to accomplish. Or it might be that, we really want to reach a different particular audience, and we're trying to do blah, blah, whatever the outcome is. We really want the viewers or the listeners or the readers of X to do Y. And so we want to change behaviors, etc. So ultimately, the organization has to decide make those decisions in terms of the media. And of course, media, of course, is very today, there's so many branches and forums, etc. And so that's really part of the difficulty and the opportunity that exists in terms of these inequities, as you well stated in your question, and the possibilities of getting these other stories out there that don't get attention and that can bubble up perhaps to go national.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Regina. We're going to keep rocking and rolling. That was just about media. So we're going to move on to Black women in the workforce and education. And I did want to highlight this because, again, our organization is for women, but we have branches of the Men of IOTA, so the men that support us. And we also do a lot of work with youth, with our future IOTA leaders. So I definitely wanted to talk about that intersection. So this is to all the panelists. Black women have historically faced both racial and gender-based discrimination. Sometimes it's called intersectionality, right? How has this double burden shaped their experiences in different industries? So you can speak from the industries that you have familiarity with, or experiences that you have seen either in leadership roles. Yeah, don't limit yourself, but I guess I want you to feel like you have perspective, even if you aren't a Black woman, because we do have two gentlemen on the panel.
Okay, since the guys aren't jumping in, I guess
Okay,
I will.
lady.
Okay, so before I jump into this, I have to pay homage to my cosmetologist and hairstylist, Tracy Williams. It is her voice that took me out of my garage and doing projects just for family and family resources to putting me in the classroom. Because a lot of times people don't understand, and well, people who go to barbers and cosmetologists, they realize that those are sometimes your very first counselors.
Yep.
They're taking care of your crown and they're taking care of your brain. And we have to say a huge shout out to that particular profession, because my Tracy calls one day and says, "Hey, there's a job open to teach construction at Duncanville High School." And I said, "Oh, I know some people that can do that." And her response was, "No fool you."
You are the people.
You are her.
Yes.
I had never actually considered going into the classroom to teach building trades and construction, even though I knew more about that than any other topic, because my bonus dad, my daddy in love, was a carpenter. So I learned that because of him, and because of my grandmother's prodding to make sure that I studied education at minimum as a minor at Howard University. I was able to combine the two worlds and didn't even realize how much I loved education until I started teaching construction. So we talk about discrimination and bias. My very first day in the classroom as a building trades instructor, all the students thought I was another substitute teacher, because I'm not what the
Where's the dude
typical,
that's supposed to teach us how to cut wood?
yeah, I'm not what you look like. And then I'll even, and without going into every single instance, I'll race it up until yesterday. I was at a local hardware store and I was needing router bits. And so I, called the little service bell so they could come unlock the router bits. And so the gentleman says, "What do you want?" And I pointed to two different router bits. I didn't say much. And he says, "Oh, you don't want that one?" I said, "No, I need the one that has the colic on it." He looks and he says, "Well, what are you making?" And I said, "I'm just finishing up a cabinet, that's all." "Aren't we industrious?" To which I smiled and I said, "We are. We are." And he says, "So what makes you that industrious?" I said, "Well, I'm a union carpenter for United Brotherhood of Carpenter and Joiners. I'm an industry leader when it comes to curriculum development for National Centers for Construction Education and Research, for whom I am a certified building trades instructor. And I teach some heavy machinery operations for the United Brotherhood." So yeah, I'm a little industrious.
Mm-hmm. Love a
The
good
bias,
explanation.
the bias, it never
Wow.
ceases to amaze me. It
Yeah.
always humors me, because I tell people, just because I look like this doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing. Don't let the shell
Right.
get in the
Especially if you're
way
giving
of
no
the.
indication that you're confused. Like, I'm literally telling you what I want. Why are we having?
Yes. I'm telling you exactly what I want, you know, and then I'm telling you what you don't have in stock, which is what your website said that you had in stock, which is what I really needed. Okay. so so a lot of times, just because of the color of our skin, because of the neighborhoods in which we live, because of our gender, people underestimate the abilities of our brain. I have walked into many a room where, you know, I've been asked the question, what makes you think you deserve to be here?
So that
So,
kind of both validates that, okay, you got some skills, but also invalidates your ability to use those skills.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know, I dare not pull out my resume and the laundry list of things that aren't even on the resume.
Yeah.
Okay. The fact that within my line of work, I pulled out of the education system 2 years ago to care for my parents. Well, actually 5 years ago to care for my parents that passed away 2 years ago.
Mhm.
I have not one day solicited work. It always finds me because what I have contributed has its own wings. And so we have to make sure that we're letting people know what you contribute has its own wings. It will bring you your economic stability. It will bring you your financial resources. It will give you access to training opportunities if you just let your skills go in front of you.
Well, this question isn't on our list, but it did come to me as you're talking. When you think about like the trade industry as a woman and how like this was traditionally what provided stability to Black families, you know, I guess at the end of Jim Crow towards the, you know, when industry started booming after World War II, right?
Right,
And
right.
then, again, at the same time during World War II, who was working in those factories?
We were.
Women, Black women,
Right.
right? And so I guess my question is, as someone who kind of learned to love like the trade world, what are some of the dangers or things that have like been deterrents and how have you been able to overcome those? Like, you know, what are the things like, okay, you don't need to be here because of, you know, all the different reasons why, but how do you navigate around those?
Um, I'm going to say within the construction and building trades industry, a huge danger a lot of people don't even think about is drug use and alcohol use.
Mm, mental health.
Mm, yeah. Um, a lot of the jobs that you do that are done put you at high risk of some type of dangers. It may be mesothelioma. It may be um, something to do with you know, your lung health or your brain health or the ability to see because of maybe you're a welder and you might, you know, get arc burn. There's lots of different things that cause hazards. um, Doing high time, you know, working, you know, more than 10 feet off
Elevations and
the
stuff.
ground at
Yeah.
elevated levels can
Mhm.
cause stress to be inflicted upon the body. And so a lot of people don't realize that drugs and alcohol are heavily prevalent for those particular jobs. Personally, I've chosen not to do drugs and not to do alcohol because as a woman, if I'm out hanging out at the bar with my coworkers, I put myself in a more susceptible position to have someone slip some other type of element into my drink. And then my brain has gone bonkers.
Yeah.
So
A new, different type of trauma you have to deal
it's a
with.
whole nother kind of trauma. You know,
Mhm.
if someone, as they called it back, and they slip you a Mickey.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you have to really be cognizant of everything you do to protect yourself from making sure you have on the appropriate personal protective equipment with your clothing, making sure you have on, you know, your ear protection, your eye protection, your respiratory protection, but you also have to protect your body because once your body is violated, there is never a chance of restoring who you once were.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
those are some things that people just don't think about as
Yeah.
dangers inside of that community.
Thank you so much. And
You're
I
welcome.
think fear is something that keeps people from a lot of things, even things that they're passionate about. But you know, knowledge is the how we can combat anxiety. Like the more you
Mhm.
know, the more you can, you know, work with. And I
Yeah.
think, well, just one more question about women in the workforce, mentorship, networking, business education programs. How can those things better support Black women pursuing careers in specifically male-dominated industries? I mean, Regina, as far as journalism, I guess as a caveat, has there been a shift in like who's telling the stories, or is it still mostly male voices that are making it to a lot of these publications? And then you can answer as well, Tammy.
Well, thank you for this great question. Definitely, you mentioned my favorite word, one of them, which is mentoring and mentorship. There definitely has been a shift over time in both ways. More people looking and understanding the value of being mentored, and more people are recognizing that they can become mentors. And so it's working so many different arenas, asking for it, realizing the value of connecting with someone. And then just in terms of storytelling, yes, there's so many more women and women of color in journalism today, serving at all levels, but certainly not near enough, right? There's still a glass ceiling. And yes, there certainly are not enough at the executive levels, but there has been a significant improvement. I'm a former member of the National Association of Black Journalists. I won an award some years ago for a documentary I did back in Memphis, where I'm from. It was a radio documentary on Dr. King. And so NABJ is very active with promoting mentoring, mentorship for particularly up and comers, but also at all levels, because our careers change, our jobs change, and you might need someone at a different level, no matter what your age is. In fact, I benefited as a graduate student, not only my first master's, which is in journalism administration from the University of Memphis, from just the chair of the program mentoring me, saying when I first expressed interest in getting a master's, because I thought it would be important to have it while I was doing the news, and a news director at Kicks 106, which, by the way, was a country music radio station. So you talk about breaking ground. And I just finished my degree at Abilene and then went back home and worked, etc. But anyway, the point is that when I decided I needed to further strengthen my career, looked at grad work, and the chair said, listen, there are scholarship funds available. Would you be interested in applying for A, B, and C? You're going to have to, work part-time on, in the department to help offset whatever this works out to be. And it turned out to be a fellowship. And so that mentor, his name is Dr. Dan Lattimore, to this day, he and I are still in touch. He's, of course, retired, but he served as a great resource for my master's thesis, because he's a Texan, and he came back to Texas when he retired from University of Memphis. And so the point of mentoring and mentorship is something I'm quite interested in writing about at some point, because it can make so many possibilities available and come into existence.
Thank you so much. And Tammy, before you answer, apprenticeship as a concept too. I guess if you could speak to that as someone in the trade industry. But yeah, what are some of those things that mentorship, networking, and business education can do to help Black women balance the scales in the male-dominated industry?
I think that first and foremost, dads are important to African American females. Present, available, in-home dads. And I'm not saying that it has to be your dad by birth, but it could be an uncle that serves as a dad figure. The reason I'm a carpenter is simply because of my dad. I watched him always make sure something was fixed. I was his trusty sidekick. And as a result, I didn't know that I was being menteed. I did not know he was being my mentor. I was just doing what my dad did. Okay. Fast forward, as a mother of 3 sons who watched me fix, repair, prod on everything, I now have 3 sons who are in some shape, form, or fashion looped inside of the construction industry. My oldest son serves as a trade show carpenter. My middle son is doing his apprenticeship as an electrician. And my youngest son is getting a degree in electrical engineering at North Carolina A&T.
Okay.
So they watched me, but I watched my dad.
Yeah.
And the people who have surrounded my children have given them even more opportunities than the ones I opened up. All right. So mentorship, even if you don't realize you're mentoring, just by sharing what your profession is, and social media has been an amazing outreach for that. I've gotten more phone calls, more requests for, various things to do simply because I use social media as a method to do mentorship. And it's more of a you can because I can moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Representation.
Representation. Yeah. Representation matters.
Yes.
Yeah.
David, did you have your hand up? Did you want to contribute to the part about the ladies before we move on to economic development?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to indicate that I'm actually mentoring a lady now, an African American lady in the area of sales.
Okay.
But her area, her field is home remodeling. She decided to get into the home remodeling business. Specifically, she's focused on kitchens and bathrooms. Obviously, the most lucrative of the
Yes.
home remodeling business are those two areas. And she has a degree in education. In fact, she's a teacher in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She's an alumni of Southern University, as am I.
Okay.
And so there's a formal program that Texas Southern, in conjunction with Howard University, put together for mentoring young entrepreneurs. And of course, but they picked the Southern University guy to actually help with the mentoring. Just wanted my HU person to know that.
Yes,
uh,
I like
and so so sales is still an area that's evolving, with women. But when I found out that she was doing home remodeling, and I have coached and trained predominantly owned companies in that space before, so it's the first time that I've done that. So the first time that I'm doing this in that particular space. But her need right now is not that she doesn't know home, that she doesn't know the market. Her need is that she doesn't know how to sell. Okay. All right. She didn't know how to sell. She didn't know how to sell that service. And so that's what I'm working on. So sometimes it's not the skill that needs development, it's the process that needs developing. And so in this particular case, with this particular mentee, this is a formal mentoring program. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and formal, informal, the network of the universities, of HBCUs, all of those parts of our community are important in developing what it looks like when we show up in the labor market. So I'm glad to, and I love to see the cross-gender support because, yeah, that, you can learn from anybody. But I think having the heart to teach anybody, that's really what's important on the mentor side. As a therapist that trains other therapists, I've trained many therapists that don't look like me to work with people that look like me. So I think even having that perspective too. All right. So
Well, we Southern University folks like to stick together.
yes. That's what it's for. That's what it's for. All right. All
And
right,
we
Mr. O'Neill, I'll let
HBCU
you
people.
cut now up until but this is specifically for you as a leader in Chamber of Commerce development for the Black community. How do chambers of commerce advocate for Black workers and business owners? Because I know what a chamber of commerce is because I know you, Mr. O'Neill, but a lot of people don't really know what their functions are. So could you share with us, what do chambers of commerces do for workers, business owners, and as far as like developing the workforce? Right, you're on mute, Mr. O'Neill. No, don't be on mute. Let me get you off mute, Mr. O'Neill. Can you unmute him, somebody? Yeah, there you go. All right, I'll get you off mute.
So,
Listen
all
all-
right, I'm just saying
listen
thank
all
you
this-
to you and thank you to Iota Phi Lambda. And it has been years since I've seen Miss Regina Burns, and good to see her. David Tyson, of course, know him from his time interacting with the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce while I was there. Very clearly, that I believe that chambers of commerce play a vital role in business development without much focus on job development necessarily.
Okay.
But clearly, the ultimate expression of a successful business is that one that flourishes enough to employ people. So what we try to work on is making sure that businesses are prepared, number one, and then that access to resources that will enable them to take advantage of the opportunities in the marketplace. And so one example in the macro sense is I'm here now in Austin. There is a particular piece of legislation that I believe will be damaging to Black-owned businesses in the state of Texas. Now, the state of Texas has the largest Black population among the 50 states. You cannot tell that by the state's policies. And there is again, a bill being proposed for this session that would effectively eviscerate the state's historically underutilized business program. And so we're here actively working against that. Of particular interest on this proposed bill is that it's proposed that it not just affect state procurement, but county, municipal, school district, transit authority, every quasi-governmental agency in the state. And so public sector contracting has been the entry point for great business success. And so our
being able to expand, right?
For big dollar contracting opportunities. And so if we're shut out from public sector contracting, which again, I think because we're taxpayers, then there's some implicit reciprocity. We are taxpayers and we should have an expectation of opportunity. And that's not, and you referenced the current climate, that's not what's going on right now. And so we're working really, really, really hard to impact the policies that will either improve access or work to make sure that those policies hoping to strangle access are not in place, right? And so that's on the macro level. At the local level, again, chambers of commerce, I think what we have found is that local chambers have been, I'll use this word, the font of civic engagement, right? And so business owners stereotypically are those people in our community who have either one, the resources and or the time to lend themselves to other civic endeavors. And so you'll see a successful business owner become a school board member, or a successful business owner become a city council person. And so the tentacles that radiate out from successful business enterprises have impacts all across the entire spectrum of our community. And so that is one. And then at the base level, chambers of commerce are good because sitting next to another business owner might just be the catalyst you need to make your business explode, right? And so again, Dallas is fortunate in that Dallas is the place that we have found the first Black Chamber of Commerce. And so Texas has a seminal role in the explosion of Black Chambers of Commerce across the country. The second being in Houston. This organization that I work at now is the oldest statewide Black Chamber of Commerce in the nation, dating from 1935. And so now with chambers far-flung from coast to coast, all have a direct link to the birth of Black chamber life in Dallas, Texas. So.
Thank you for that. And that historical context, because I know Dallas has the reputation of being, the city for business. This is where the headquarters are. And it's like, you don't even realize how deep it is. So this is where the Black business people go to organize and to grow. So I like that. And when you think about like some of your favorite programs or initiatives from over the years that have directly benefited entrepreneurs, what comes to mind?
Oh man, just shoot, there's too many and all kinds too. And so there have been celebrations like, again, the Dallas Black Chamber's Push for Success was the largest at one time, the largest entrepreneur salute in west of the Mississippi. That was at one point. But the smaller successes are the ones that make the most sense for me when we're able to introduce a business owner that's got legs, so to speak, to a financer, to access to capital that absolutely opens the doors for their business, and or interacting with a corporation that has a procurement program and we've got a business owner that can absolutely fill that need. Those small successes, again, are the ones that are most gratifying to me. And so, when we're able to see, well, I'll take your business, for instance. I remember when you were, so to see that, is just that's what we work for. It's to see folk grow and mature and turn into business owners on their own and are able to, again, here you are doing civic duty, because your business allows you the time and the bandwidth to contribute in this way. And so that's the thing. A couple of things that sprung to my mind, if I don't mind, just one quick digression. Ms. Burns started off talking about the Chicago Defender, and I was trying to make this nexus between, I spent 20 years in the newspaper business, and there was a time, and she referenced East Texas too. There was a time, okay, that it was against the law to have a copy of the Chicago Defender in Harrison County, Texas. And but here's the thing, and this is my other digression. When I read African American labor, I thought of the labor movement. So I'm thinking about the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, right? And they were the channel through which Black newspapers were distributed across the country. So the Chicago Defender, how do you get one in Marshall, Texas? The Pullman car porters, right? They dropped them off, and so.
No, that's something I didn't know. I knew about both of these things individually, but we don't see how
Chicago Defender, Pittsburgh Courier, Amsterdam News, all of them, the Atlanta Daily World, the Birmingham World, all of those newspapers found their way into hands across the country because of A. Philip Randolph and the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, right? So that's
one of the first labor organizations in the country for Black people. That is amazing.
Yeah. May I, Ms. Moderator, if you don't mind, may I just thank Mr. O'Neill for just illuminating that rich, fabulous history of how our people have always been innovative and creative in doing what has to be done. And in history, they call it resistance and resisting, Jim Crow and Juan Crow and every other Crow to do the job of getting the word out and getting the information in the right hands. I'm just so delighted to hear that nugget that you just dropped the mic. Thank you, sir.
Oh, great. Exactly. And the whole fact that we're going to probably have to go back to that, to a sense of that the sense of community and connection across state lines, right? And how do we get information to each other and how do we support each other? But history is where it starts. You have to know where you've been and know where you're going, right? All right, one more question about Chambers of Commerce. As far as historical exclusion, what you're doing right now, Mr. O'Neill, with working in the legislature and as a hub in an MBE, I'm like, oh, I need y'all not to do that because those contracts are the ways that a lot of businesses like myself will scale and be able to have more capital without necessarily taking out that loan. So I guess what other economic disparities do you think business ownership and chambers of commerce affect? Like, how do we, what are some other ways that we've been able to fight using these organizations?
Again, I think well, clearly, just in the nominative, the chamber it is a unified group of people, all assembled for the purpose of this one mission: growth, development, expansion of Black-owned business. That's what we do. That's all we do. I don't work for Hispanics. I work for Black people, right? and so that's almost the kind of, I think, the approach, again, against the current environment that we have to resort to, because it's very clear. It's clear to me that the end of all of the anti stuff is to further isolate Black folk from any opportunity at economic stability. And so again, I'm a strong advocate of of chambers of commerce, clearly, but unity. The old proverb, if you want to go fast, go ahead, take on off. If you want to go far, we go together, right? And this is a way for us. You mentioned the certification. The U.S. Black Chambers has created its own certification because we know that MWBE did not benefit us at the same rate it benefited white women. DBE is because of the onerous federal standard of DBE. It's difficult for us to break in on heavy highway and other giant construction opportunities. SBE has primarily benefited white males, and veterans, clearly, though we have verified roles in the military, we still have not benefited from veterans programs at the same rate as other groups have. And so when we can create the kind of surety that business owners are capable, qualified, and willing to work, and our certification is called Buy Black, BYBLACK, Buy Black. It is Buy Black, for Black is us, right? And that is at U.S. Black Chambers. And so there are, I think at the final, and this is my one resort to just an O'Neillism, have to is different from want to. We have to do this. This is not something we talk about, man, I sure would like for us to get together. No. We've got to. We've got to. And so I sincerely believe that when we solve the economic challenges, then we're better able to focus on and cure some of the social ills. When we have our own money, we can solve educational shortcomings. When we have money, we can solve the inability to access healthcare. When we have our own money, we can solve access to capital, literally, right? And so I think we just have to return to the kind of focus on our economic issues. And I'll leave with this one quote. This is my last one. I found this quote in a book by Harold Cruz. Most folk know his book, Crisis of the Negro Intellectual. He also wrote this book called Rebellion or Revolution. And he says that while it is true that while it is true that ideologies move men, it is economics that feeds, clothes, and shelters them. If ideologies are not understood in terms of economics, they're not understood at all. And so we get thrown off into, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, I'm a moderate, you ain't eating nothing if you don't have no money. And what we have found is that clearly rich folk are driving our government at this moment. And they have no concern for those issues that are important to us. And so.
Thank you so much.
Period paragraph.
Sometimes you gotta say it. Like, it's not that money is everything, but it is the tool we need to get our everything. We need that tool because that's the system.
It is a tool. That's key. Thank you for saying that. It is a tool.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to I guess, career development and pathways, because that's another big thing that IOFI Lambda is big on. We love helping young people, be exposed. Career exploration is an entire project that we do. And so I think this is more of like a personal opinion and looking at your own industry. What are some opportunities for potentials for Black professionals as far as careers go? Because I know Black folk, we're in the medical field, we're in the education field, but what else are things that we can be doing too? That's why Tammy's, working in the trade industry. There was a time where, yes, Black people were dominating that, and now we're not. But what are the opportunities to get us in different industries and kind of diversify so that we're not all just working low wage jobs and kind of staying stuck in the rat race in a way?
Oh my, a huge open space that I have identified is for repair. It is so hard.
We're talking about fixing stuff?
Pardon me?
We're not fixing stuff?
Well, here's the thing. Even the machines that we work with have to be repaired. And if no one is repairing those machines and people don't know how to build them, then we are at a deficit because now we're losing technology.
Yeah.
So that is a huge arena that we really need to, expose. I know when I worked in the high school system, there were lathers and CNC machines and all types of milling machines that, because there were no licensed vendors to come in and fix those machines that had fallen into disrepair, I had to learn how to fix them just so that my kids could use them.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know how to calibrate the set screws for a planer until I needed to use that planer, and there was no one available to calibrate those set screws. So, I had to personally teach myself how to measure in microns, not because I wanted to, but because I had to.
Yeah.
And so that is a humongous field that is untapped, not thought about. Something as simple as fixing a fan or replacing the thermostat in your refrigerator, or gosh, what else? I mean, there's a million things you can think about on how to fix what needs to be fixed. My son is texting me. How to fix what needs to be fixed. There's a lot of things that we don't even try to fix because we think things are disposable. And so if we can blow open some of those opportunities, then we put our kids in a better position to be of value.
Yeah, and find a lot of meaning in their work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as somebody who, I don't fix people because I'm a therapist, no, I help people heal themselves. So it's like, but to be somebody who actually, no, I fixed that. and to be able to have that sense of satisfaction, I think would be great. So exposure to these, so we might have to talk with you in career exploration one day when we get our feels.
Happy
to just know them hey, if you like working with your hands, there's a lot of honor and prestige in that too, because you're right for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah, and not only is there honor and prestige, there's value in it.
There's money.
There's value in it. Even yesterday, I'm standing in, like I said, at the hardware store. The gentleman is being a little snippy about my abilities. And he said, well, how much would you charge me to build this cabinet? And I said, $1,500 without blinking. That's what rolls off of my tongue. Yeah. He says, oh, well, I can buy it off of Wayfair for $500. I said, yes, you can.
And you can buy your house.
You can buy medium density fiberboard right off of Wayfair if you so choose. And that's for you. I said, but if you just walk down 2 aisles and you pick up a sheet of plywood, I guarantee you that a premium piece of plywood is $79.95. And he looks at me and I said, at minimum, you're going to need 2 sheets.
You stole me on that. That's funny. Thank you for that. So that's like kind of in the trade world. And I mean, Mr. David, you work a lot with HR professionals and you've worked in the medical field. Do you see any gaps in some of those industries or the industries that you've, coached and mentored in the past?
I see a lot of gaps. And that's what I do. That's why I call myself a sales doctor.
Yeah.
I come in to fill gaps in the HR departments, in the sales departments specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Gamble had made a comment about the repair industry. Well, these are things that are indirectly all connected, but everything is connected to sales.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we do in some form or another is connected to sales. Okay, let me say this. There is no industry in the world that is more lucrative than sales. Okay, you got me? I know, and Black folks in particular, you don't get that.
Mm-hmm.
Black folks in particular don't get that. This guy we're talking about right now that's sitting up there running the White House, how did he make his money?
Getting into sales stuff that he didn't sell.
In sales.
And con.
Yeah, that now I'm not going to take that part out of it. Now there are some sales folks that are con people as well. All right,
Yes.
so with anything there's good, bad, and ugly. I mean, there's good, bad, and ugly doctors, right? let's just put the good, bad, and ugly lawyers. There good, bad, and ugly finance people. There's always good, bad, and ugly in any industry. But I'm saying that because there are a number of gaps. And Ms. Gamble, when she was making the comment about the repair industry, Mr. O'Neill knows me. I think probably the only other, he's probably the only person on here that knows me, knows my background. But I live over in North Dallas in City Council District 10. I'm actually a volunteer. I'm a senior affairs commissioner for City Council District 10. But I'm the first person of color that was elected to the Richardson ISD School Board back in 2004. And one of the things that one of the industry leaders that does a lot of work out at the airport, you guys probably familiar with TDI?
Yes.
Okay, probably familiar with Jack Lowe. Those individuals, him, his brother, the whole family. Well, I had an opportunity to put a program together to help skilled labor, to help them do mentorship programs for high school students.
Mm.
And so that's in the HVAC area and in plumbing. That's their mainstay.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get any Black kids to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I purposely in our household utilize an African-American owned company to do our heating and air conditioning. Mm-hmm. We know it's lucrative. I have literally trained independent, the company trained what they call custom specialists, comfort specialists, to come into homes and to come into business to train people on how to upsell their products and their services. All right, so yeah, there's a gap in the B2B sales space. There's only approximately 25% of that industry goes to people that look like us. So that means 75% of that industry is still going to people that don't look like us. There is definitely a gap.
Exactly.
Definitely a gap. But I'm not taking anything away from finance or STEM or any of that stuff. But understand this. There's a sales component attached to each one of those areas. Mm-hmm. When you become a CPA, when you become a lawyer, how do you get your business? Mm-hmm. we call it rainmaking. If you don't go out and bring in clients, you're not going to get paid.
Mhm.
In the industry of journalism, you know, there's the news side of it, but if they don't have advertisers, then I'm sorry, Ms. Burns, you're not going to have a job.
Better talk. You better talk.
Okay.
Teach,
All right.
teach.
So that's why I'm the sales doctor. And there aren't that many folks, I guarantee you, that look like me that do what I do. If you're not making $200,000 a year in the B2B sales space, you slacking. Now,
Come talk to
I don't
sales
want to
doctor.
I don't want to take away from educators, because we need educators, because if we don't have educators, those salespeople and those finance folks, those doctors, the lawyers, those folks won't happen. So we still need those industries to work. We need the city council people to do what they do. We need the state representatives. We need our state senators. We need our congresspeople to do what they do, because all of this is interconnected. I just want to make sure I state this and make it very clearly. There is no industry that is more lucrative than B2B sales.
Gotta sell your ideas, sell your business, and sell your services. Exactly.
Hey, every ex-athlete at some point in time wants to get out and get into sales, right?
And they have their shoes and their clothing
That's
lines.
right. That's it. Their shoes. Mr. Jordan, he makes more money. What does he make? $400 to $500 million a year, and he's not even on the basketball court.
All right, and played in 30 years almost. Exactly. Thank you so much, Sales Dr. David. Okay, so this conversation could go on, but I know we are pressed for time. So I want each of my panelists to leave us with a little nugget of wisdom that will help us just really honor Black history in this space as laborers, as workers, as business owners. And yeah, we'll wrap up for the evening with our vice president of our chapter giving us a nice send-off. So who would like to go first?
I will jump in. Another show and
She's
tell.
ready. Of course,
Another
the
show and
journalist is
tell.
gonna be ready.
This is a primary source document that I used in my research, in my thesis. So Henry Miller Morgan, who founded the nation's first African-American barber college chain, and I'm looking to find graduates, by the way, of Tyler Barber College. Tyler Barber College existed from 1933 to 1974-ish. It was in Texas, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, and New York. There was one in Dallas, one in Houston, etc. And so I'm looking to find particularly women, because women became barbers. And also later, when the beauty law passed in 1935, women, of course, went into the hair care style business for women. And so Texas passed the 1929 barber license law. African Americans could not become barbers when this law passed. And so then Morgan comes along and started Tyler Barber in 1933 during Jim Crow and Great Depression, which allowed African Americans to get the training in order to become a licensed barber. They had to take the exam. And so that's the history that I'm making sure that people are aware of. And then, of course, other African American barber schools eventually opened, but the first one in the nation was in Tyler, Texas. So as I close out, this is a program from the 53rd annual Texas Association of Tonsorial Artists Convention. And this convention was held in 2006 in Odessa, Texas. Why is this relevant? Because Morgan started this organization, Texas Association of Tonsorial Artists, to organize African-American barbers into their own organization. And so one of the questions that I always talk about, and my professors at UNT stressed to us, when African-Americans were going through Jim Crow segregation, discrimination, how did they address it? We created our own institutions, our own Black Chamber. We just heard the amazing guy going on, Mr. O'Neill, drop the mic. and help us understand and know the Chicago Defender and the role of how it was distributed. Long before distribution was formally organized, they had an informal system, or maybe it was formal. And so I'll close out by showing you the picture of Mr. Morgan and these African-American business leaders who were barbers in the state. And I fortunately found a man named Mr. Two men, of course, I've already told you about the amazing Mr. Edmund Morrow in Turl, Texas. Turl, of course, is where the Grammy Award winning and Oscar winner Jamie Foxx, whose real name is Eric Bishop, was born. And so this story, my story about Edmund Morrow, published in 2020. He then, as I indicated, I went on to school, etc. That's when I really began to find all this research about the barbering industry and began to really just be amazed that there's no book, no one has written about it, etc. And so I hope to do that, and wanted to just celebrate lastly Johnny Crawford, who is a barber who, again, these are barbers that are still living, still cutting hair, semi-retired. Mr. Johnny Crawford and his beautiful wife, Mrs. Shirley Crawford, live in the Oak Cliff area. Johnny heard a radio advertisement in late 1959, 58-ish in Tampa, Florida, on WLAC, a radio station out of Nashville. And they were playing this African-American music back in the day, in the 50s. And he happened to be listening on a Saturday night. And, veterans had come back from the war and wanted this station in Nashville to play Black music. Anyway, Tyler Barber College was advertising on WLAC. Morgan heard the ad about Tyler Barber College, come to Texas. You can make a profitable living as a barber, blah, blah, blah. We have state-of-the-art training. So Crawford packs his family up, relocates from Tampa, Florida to Tyler, Texas in 1959. Of course, Henry Miller Morgan is still alive then. They're in Tyler. Crawford passes the exam, does the training, passes, then gets his license and is still cutting hair part-time today in Oak Cliff, Texas, semi-retired. And so I've done oral history interviews with Mr. Morrow and Mr. Crawford, and looking to find other people, but this is a primary source from Mr. Crawford. So I always want to give credit to help you know and understand how I received this information.
Thank you so much, Ms. Burns. And if you are interested in seeing some of her sources, a lot of them are on your website, correct? On your Harvest Media website. You can go to Harvest Media and see
HarvestReapers.com, Harvest Reapers Communications. You can see my blog, which I've been blogging for many, many years. I graduated in December from UNT, the second master's. You can see the video, my YouTube channel, all of that's out there. And I'm looking to find, I'd love to find a graduate student who would be interested in working with me on this. I'm trying to find grants that can help me further my research. So if anyone has any thoughts or ideas, harvestreapers.com, you can find my contact information there. And this has been such a joy to meet all of you. And wow, I'm so thankful to Dr. Kimberly Hill. I want to give credit to her because she was the first person that I contact. She's a historian at the University of Texas at Dallas. She's the first person that I contacted after my mentor, my former professor at Abilene Christian, Dr. Charlie Marler, challenged me after the story came out in Texas Highways and said, I want you to go back to school because there aren't enough African-American historians. And this is December of 2020. Of course, the George Floyd horrific incident had happened. And then the magazine asked me to write this article. Bottom line, I wouldn't be, and I have to give credit, Dr. Marler, I didn't think of this on my own. He's the one that said to me, you can make a difference in your community. And so as a white man who had gotten his doctoral degree in journalism at University of Missouri, Columbia, he took one Black history course from the only African-American history professor at University of Missouri, Columbia, Dr. Strickland, back in the day in the 70s. And Dr. Marler then was able it changed his life. And then he, of course, changed my life. And I contacted Dr. Hill to get her advice. I said, well, my former mentor wants me to go back to grad school. Does this make sense? And he says there aren't that many African-American historians. And I was just trying to vet the advice. I was like, is that what happened to the historians? You know, did somebody do something to them? You know, I was thinking this was a story. I was like, oh, you know, they need to call CNN. What happened to the Black historians, you know? And so Dr. Hill vetted the advice, confirmed it. You know, she said, you know, and I want you to call UNT and da da da. And then Dr. Todd Moy, who's a renowned historian at UNT, oral historian, particularly oral history is his strength, introduced me to Dr. Delaney because they had written a book together, Civil Rights in Black and Brown. And so because of those connections, Dr. Delaney graciously made the scholarship available. So I just want to give credit to them. And I hope to continue to learn more and to make a further contribution in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Regina. All right, who'd like to go next and give us a little bit of parting words?
I'll say this because I'm going to shout out to Ms. Gamble and to Mr. Tyson. I think they're perfectly positioned for where we are now. Mm-hmm. Perfectly positioned. Our entry into the world of entrepreneurism was as tradespeople. And if we don't recapture those skills, I tell my wife, she used to get mad at me because I tell her I want to learn how to lay brick. She was like, "What are you talking about, man?" I was like, "Man, I want to be a brick mason, you know." And but the carpentry skills, my uncle, one of my favorite uncle was a master carpenter in Detroit. These guys could build a house in 3 days. They were just without this was before power tools, right? They were just good, right? And because of she mentioned earlier. Repair work, home repair as well. So folk aren't buying houses, they're remodeling their houses. So the opportunity is just so great on the trades, the skills. You got sons that are electricians, plumbers, man, that's great living. Mr. Tyson says skills. I think I'm something of a salesman as well. You know, and so we know that the entry point to corporate America was in sales. It was the soft drink companies, the beer companies, tobacco companies. When they said, man, we can't go down there. They wasn't going to the Dewdrop Inn, but they could hire a brother to go down to the Dewdrop Inn and sell beer, wine, whatever, soda pop, Coca-Cola. You can go to the furthest backwood joint and find a Coca-Cola sign. Because it was a black salesman that went down there. And they had Lucky Strike cigarette, and they had every kind of cigarette you want down in the hood, because they hired then later on Pitney Bowes, IBM, Xerox. They started hiring, well, they were both salespeople and repair people. Right. So those were entry-level jobs, but those sales jobs, and I'm sorry, Mr. Tyson, I'm about to say David. Mr. Tyson, as he as he accurately described, if you think about, and Ms. Burns knows this as well, if you are looking to run a newspaper, or you looking to explore a television station, you'll find that publishers come from the sales side, not the editorial side.
That's right.
Station managers come from the sales side, not from behind the camera or in front of the camera, right? And so the folk who understand how the money comes inside the organization is the people who get the jobs managing the money inside the organization. And so the tradespeople, number one, salespeople, number two, and this is how I'll finish with this, if you're in business and you can't figure out how to make the cash register ring, you ain't in business anyway.
It's a hobby.
You know.
Thank you so much, Mr. O'Neill. I appreciate it. All right, Mr. Tyson, Tammy, who wants to go next?
I'll let Tammy close it out because I know she's a good closer. So I'll just say this. I agree with everything that Charles says. And yes, you are a salesperson coming out of journalism. Actually, my degree is in journalism. I actually have a degree in journalism from Southern University, and I actually worked in print journalism for about a year or so, and I actually worked in worked in broadcast journalism for Television 3, an ABC affiliate in Shreveport, Louisiana. So I've done both. And the reason one of the reasons I got hired by Johnson and Johnson, one of the premier training companies in the medical space, and that's how I got to Dallas, is because the guy who was interviewing me saw me on television. He saw me doing a news report, and so that's kind of how that carrot moved forward. But I think it's already been said. Nothing happens until you sell something. Nothing happens until you sell something. And I think that's a carrot that I'd like to leave and let that just stay there and let you think about it, and reach out to me if you want to move in that direction. I'm very thankful for Courtney. I'm certainly, I'm not happy that she's out tonight, but she gave me this opportunity to represent the DeSoto Area Chamber of Commerce. I hope I've done well. We're working together. You know, I'm a North guy. No, I live in North Dallas, but I saw some advantages and some reasons to come that far south to do some work. And so we're doing. And I have a daughter who works in my business with me part-time. She's excellent. So if you want to go back and look at a workshop, go back and look at the video that we did a couple of weeks ago. She's on there. So we will be doing 2 workshops, March 17th, 18th, that will be virtual, and we'll be culminating it on the 22nd at the Chamber office. So go back and go to the DeSoto Area Chamber of Commerce website, and you can find those events there on the sales track training. And what we will do, because Charles, Mr. O'Neill made the comment, is what we have to do this. It's not just that we want to do this. We have to get people better equipped on how to go out and present, not just to present a service or a product, but the council member, you present when you're trying to get a referendum passed, when you're trying to get a bond package passed, when you're trying to bring business into the DeSoto area. You are selling, no matter how you look at it. And so we're going to bring to the Great Southwest the first ever sales summit to the Great Southwest this June. We're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen, but I need every one of you all's support to make that happen. God bless you.
Oh, yes, just keep me posted, and we will see how Iota Phi Lambda can support that initiative, because DeSoto is where our chapter is based. So we definitely want to make sure that our community is getting those skills. All right, Ms. Gamble, author, carpenter, painter. Go ahead and close up, just living history.
So let me round this out. We are coming from working with mental health professionals. And one of the things that I hear the most when working with youth is they have anxiety or fear of the unknown. And so I always challenge the kids that the fear of the unknown and the fear of lack is what has driven humanity. So that's why we even seek solutions. Look to the past for your inspiration so that you can solve a problem now. You gotta have somebody to sell it. You
solve the problem and
knows the history. You have to have someone that understands the psyche of the person that's going to be the receiver. So we all have to work in tandem and work in conjunction with one another as we build our new communities. Of course, the state of the economy right now is really topsy-turvy. And we may need to seek some other economic solutions instead of just looking at the U.S. currency in order to be able to trade, practice, and be able to have the things that we need for our families. So just by looking to the past, there were people who understood seeds, just understanding what seed is what seed, that the poppy seeds that are in your cabinet that you may put on your sandwich are the same poppy seeds that you can grow into life-giving plants for protein for your body. We have to start looking back into the past, using that anxiety to be our friend. So With that, I'm scared of y'all.
Oh my goodness, this was such a blessing. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. This has been a blessing to me personally. I'm going to let our Vice President, Michelle Peace, close us out. And yeah, we'll wrap up until next year. I don't know what we're going to do next year, but I don't know if we're going to top this,
Hey,
but we'll see.
Hey, Tiffany, I was gonna let Tammy close it out, but when she started talking about poppy seeds, I just had to throw this.
We all got nervous, Dave.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was with you. I was with
but I want to make it probably just a little bit more nervous, because this is a real statement. So as I mentioned, I am a Southern University alumni. Southern University is a land grant college, okay, and a big agricultural school. Do you know that Southern University has a medical marijuana farm?
Yes, I did.
You know about that, okay?
Yes, I
it
did.
is totally legal,
and
it's generating revenue for the university, and it is being utilized for medical marijuana.
But if you take that back further in history, our indigenous populations are the ones that used those plants for medicinal purposes before they were exploited in the 1920s in order to incarcerate people.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
See, y'all all right now. I don't know what my sorrows are doing. I can't see them. I know they have
that's that Howard University education.
But everything starts in the South.
That's a whole new lesson on a whole nother page.
Okay. Thank you all so much. Michelle, you ready?
Before we turn it over,
go ahead, Tawana. I'm sorry.
To Madam Vice President, we're gonna do our little raffle.
That's right. We're giving away a free Black History T-shirt
for all of our participants. We put you on a randomizer, and I drew. Well, it drew because I didn't draw it. It pulled up Sheila Fisher as our winner for tonight. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your participation.
Actually, we'll send you an email so you can choose your T-shirt for next Black History Month, or for Black Mystery Month every day, because every day is Black History Month in my mind.
Now watch this. Y'all not selling T-shirts too? I want one.
Well, I'm not selling them, but Graceful Impressions is. They really are very nice variety, lots of different statements, of course.
And for all of our presenters, we really appreciate you tonight. And we do have a token of our appreciation. So if you could make sure that you email Tiffany your mailing address, we will get those to you ASAP. Thank you again. And now in the hands of our Vice President.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. And I really want to thank you all for such a fabulous, fabulous panel. It was very much enlightening. First things first, we'd like to recognize our organization's national president-elect, Wendy B. Jacks, and her presence here. She did beg off from having any remarks, and we just want to say thank you, Madam National President-elect, for being with us and your support in tonight's program. And as they stated, our president, Yan Harbert, is not able to be a part of this particular event, but I so much would like to thank you all for joining us, because this was powerful. It was thought-provoking, and it gave us a real view of our history. Ms. Burns talked about the Chicago Defender, and for IOTA, that has huge implications in our history. And so we are extremely excited to hear about it, as well as the Jackson Advocate, who, like leaders in our organization, were the authors and writers for those particular newspapers. So we are excited about that particular Black history and the ties to media that you mentioned.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for that. We want to thank you all again for your participation tonight. We see lots of guests on the line. I see somebody that says council member, and I think I saw Howard or Harvey as part of the last name. Thank you so much for joining us. Each guest that's here, each Sarah that's here, we want to say thank you for being with us tonight. We also want to thank our Black History Month committee for taking this topic and taking this program and body slamming it as only ET members can do. And you guys have knocked it out of the park. It was informative. It was, it was thought provoking. It gave us a lot to think about. And this subject of Black labor is really, really important. So once again, I want to thank you all for your participation, being engaged. We didn't get to question and answer. The topics were so good and the information was so great. But we do, if you have things you want to make comments about, I think we won't lose touch with our panelists. And so if we need to, we can get answers for you. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And that closes my opening remarks. Good night.